Hello everybody and welcome to the Family Sunday School class at Grace United Methodist Church in St. Augustine. I'm Martha and we always start off our lesson with a little time together to talk, and to do that I like to say grab a snack, grab a water, grab your family and bring them all back. We're going to pause this video for a second, go get all those things and come back. When you come back, I'll be out with the bees and I'll have a question for you and your family to talk about while you eat your snack. All right, so go grab those things and I'll see you in just a minute. Bye. Hi everybody, welcome back to the apiary for another family lesson on leprosy. And here we are at the bee yard. We're going to get in the bees again this week and help us remember the lessons that we're learning from the Bible. It's kind of a cool way. I've enjoyed teaching this way, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. So today we're going to learn about a man named Naaman. And he was very powerful with a very big job, and important job, I should say. And we're going to learn about some jobs in the honeybee hive. So did you know that all the honeybees have different jobs? They do. So I'm going to point out some of the jobs that they have. Right now there's a bee that keeps coming at my head. You'll notice that's a guard bee. That's their job. They're checking out what I'm doing here and am I a danger to their hive or not. So that's one job, the guard bee. Right now I'm going to get my hood on and open up a hive, and while I do that, if you'll talk to your family for just a few minutes about some jobs that you do around the house to help out your family so that you all can have a wonderful day. I'll see you in a minute. So on this frame of bees, you can see a lot of different workers. These are the nurse bees, and they are taking care of the babies before they're born. The brown ones are already capped, they're ready, and right there, that's the queen. See how big she is? And she's busy doing her job, laying eggs. And in all these holes that you can't really see anything, there's either eggs or larvae that are growing. So all of these bees on this frame are taking care of them. They're taking them honey and bee pollen so that they can survive until they hatch out and can take care of themselves. These are called nurse bees. And the queen. So on this frame, you guys can see that where the black is right here, the wax hasn't been built up yet. So these are wax building bees. That's their job right now, is to make wax. And then they form it onto here and build it up. Yeah, so you can see these little girls right here are busy building wax. And these down here are just getting started. It's just starting to show yellow. Yeah. If I flip it over, you can see that on this side where they've built up brand new wax, but the worker bees that are collecting, remember their job collecting, they're already putting nectar in there. They're not even waiting for it to be all the way done. So they're filling it up already with nectar. And there's some more pulling wax and making wax. Working. So one of the jobs in the hive is to store nectar in the cells. So you can see that all these cells are filling up with yellow yumminess. That's nectar, which then the bees turn into honey. So some of the bees brought that nectar here. Now the other bees come really close, and let's look at this guy right here with his head stuck down in there. You see that? He is stirring that nectar to turn it into honey. Okay kids, I want you to look really hard on this frame of bees and find some bees that are standing still, but they're flapping their wings really fast. Did you find them? They have a special job, and that is drying out the honey. Once they've stirred it all around and turned the nectar into honey, they have to get all the extra water out of it. And so they use their wings and they flap, and they dry the water out of the honey. Isn't that a great job? So that's another job in the honeybee hive. There's a bee that didn't survive, and those are the undertaker bees. Their job is to take it out and get rid of it so it doesn't spread disease. There they go. So when you think about honeybees and their jobs, you think of the forager bee. That's the bee that leaves the hive and goes out to find nectar and pollen and bring it back to the hive. You can see several of these bees when they come back in. You can see the pollen on their legs. They've collected so much. You can see it. And so it's their job to leave the hive and find food for the rest of the honeybees. It's an important job. Hey guys, so our lesson today in the hive was all about the jobs that the bees do inside the hive, and I'm going to go get out of my suit now and grab the Bible, and we can have our Bible story lesson that goes along with this. But while I do that, if you guys want to take a pause and talk about all the jobs you saw and which one do you think is the most important? Which one is the most important? And then if you have time, you can even talk about which one you think is the least important of all the jobs that we saw. All right, and I will be back with my Bible and see you in a bit. Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the farm for our story that goes with our honeybee lesson today about jobs. I'm going to introduce you. Found some of my brother's old toys, and I'm going to introduce you to this guy. Today, he's going to be Naaman. Can you say hi, Naaman? Hi, kids. Naaman was the king's favorite. He was the commander of the king of Syria's army, and he was very powerful. And so before we start our story, I want you to talk about Naaman with your family. I want you to think, how did Naaman feel having such an important job? How do you think he felt? And also, what do you think other people felt about him? What did they think about him because of the job that he had? And last question, so there's 3 questions. Can you think of somebody today that has an important job like Naaman's? Something, a very important job like the commander of an army, all right? So talk about those 3 things and then come on back. Also in our story today, there is a girl, and she actually was from Israel, and they don't tell us her name. But she was in Israel when Naaman's army, the Syrian army, came and defeated Israel and took away a lot of the people from Israel and brought them back to Syria to make them slaves. And this girl was one of those. And Naaman actually took her to his house, and she was the servant for his wife. So what she did was she cared for his wife. She did anything his wife needed her to do. So now this little girl is just a slave or a servant. And so I want you to think about the same questions that I asked you about Naaman and his job. So how do you think she felt about her job, right, as a servant? How do you think the people in the Syrian countryside looked at her because of her job? How did they think of her? And the last question was then, can you think of somebody in this day and time right now who might have a job like her that is maybe not seem quite as important? Okay, so talk about those 3 things and then come back and we're going to use their characters along with a couple more to tell our story for today about Naaman and the servant girl. So our story today begins with the servant girl talking to Naaman's wife. And Naaman's wife is sad because Naaman has gotten leprosy, which we've talked about over the past couple weeks is a disease with no cure. And it's painful, and he's sick, and he's probably afraid he's going to die. And so the wife is very sad. And the servant girl says to Naaman's wife, well, it's just too bad that Naaman can't go to my homeland in Israel and see the prophet. He can heal people of their leprosy. And Naaman's wife was shocked and went straight to Naaman and told him what the servant girl had said. She said, you must go to the land of Israel and talk to the king there, because there's a prophet who can heal you. And Naaman said, oh, really? I'll go talk to the king now. And that's just what he did. Dun, 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 dun. So, Naaman went to see the king of Syria and explained to him the problem. And the king of Syria knew that they weren't friends with the king of Israel. And he said, I'll write a letter asking the king to have you healed of leprosy, but you better take a bunch of gifts for him, because if you come empty-handed, you might be given a big no. So Naaman said, okay, I will take your letter, and I'll also take gold and silver and plenty of fine clothes to give the king as a gift. And the king of Syria said, okay, here's your letter. And off Naaman went. So Naaman took his horses and his chariots and the silver and the gold, and he traveled a long, long way until finally he arrived at the king of Israel. And he said, O king, my king of Syria has sent me with this letter and this gold and this silver and these beautiful clothes. Please read the letter and let me know what you think. So the king of Israel read the letter, and the letter wasn't written very well. It simply said, please heal Naaman of leprosy. And the king of Israel was terrified. He thought, oh my gosh, they've already beaten us once, and now they want me to heal this man of leprosy. When I can't do it, they're just going to come back and attack us again. But some of his soldiers said, hey, remember, there's the prophet. Send him to the prophet, and the prophet can heal him. And the king was like, oh, that's right. So when Naaman came back, the king of Israel sent him to the prophet's house. So off he went. Soon Naaman appeared at the prophet's house and knocked on the door. And out came the prophet's servant. And he said, the prophet says, go wash in the Jordan River 7 times and you will be healed. And he went back inside. And Naaman, who was such an important man, was furious. He was so mad because the prophet didn't come out and talk to him himself. And he thought, I am such an important man. That prophet should have come out here. He should have waved his arms over me and called on his God to heal me. Instead, he only sends his servant for a man as important as me. And he was furious and decided, I'm not going to do that. I could go get in the river in any one of my countries, which would be cleaner, fresher, better water. And I could wash 7 times in that. Why did I make this journey? He was so mad. Hey, it's time for another pause for a little talk time for you and your family. I was wanting to know what your reaction was to how Naaman reacted to the servant coming out and talking to him instead of the prophet Elisha himself coming out and talking to him. Do you think it was right, wrong? Why do you think he acted that way? Would you act that way? Would someone you know act that way? Just kind of talk about that for a little bit before we finish up the rest of our story. So Naaman left the prophet's house in a huff. Gonna head back to Syria and take care of this leprosy himself. As he got near the Jordan River, set you down, Naaman, one of his fellow soldiers said to him, Naaman, I'm thinking while we're here, maybe you should just do as the servant said, the prophet said to do. And Naaman still was angry and said, I'm not listening to a servant. I deserve to be heard by the prophet. And his soldier said to him, now, Naaman, if that servant would have told you something really hard to do, you would have been challenged to do it, and you probably would have done it. But this is something very easy to do. Dip yourself in the river 7 times. Why not go ahead and do it and just see if it works? And Naaman came to his senses and said, "Oh, all right, I'll try it." And he climbed in the river and he went in that dirty old water once and came up, still had leprosy. He went in twice, came up, still had leprosy. 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, and he still had leprosy. Do you think he was starting to doubt if this was going to work and he would just look silly? Maybe, but he went ahead and dumped the 7th time. And when he came up out of the water the 7th time, his skin was clean and he no longer had leprosy. He no longer had it. And he thanked his soldier for being wise. And then he went back to the prophet's house. And he told the prophet how sorry he was for his attitude. And he told the prophet that their God was the one true God. And that in his land, Syria, the God they were worshiping was not the true God. And he wanted to take back 2 wagons full of dirt from Israel so he could build an altar to the true God when he arrived back in Syria, and he could worship the true God. Okay, you guys, that was the end of our story, and what a lot to talk about today. Naaman, who felt he was so important because he had an important job, really had to depend on a servant girl and Elijah's servant to be healed. And I'm sure that Naaman felt that those 2 were not as important as him and maybe didn't deserve as much as he deserved or weren't as good as him because they didn't have the job that he had. So hopefully you've had some great discussions about that and some talking about what it's like to be humble and what God wants for us, to believe that we are all the same and we all deserve good things and we all will have bad things happen to us as well. We just need to be here for each other. So let's have a prayer and then you guys can continue talking all week. All right, let's bow our heads and fold our hands. Dear God, thank you for our lesson today about Naaman and the servant girl and Elisha's servant, and how Naaman, who thought that he deserved great things and great respect, didn't recognize the greatness that is in every person. And help us recognize the greatness in every person that we meet, God, and that we talk to and that we deal with this week. And I pray that we have great discussions in our families about this, and we all grow in our love and our faith in you. And in Jesus Christ's name we all pray, amen. Okay, so as always, we've got 2 songs for you guys to sing today. I don't remember the name of them. Love One Another is the first one. Love One Another. Doesn't that seem to go well with our story? Love should come first. And the second song is called Lay It Down. And it's about humility and being humble and making someone else feel important and making ourselves feel maybe a little less important. But it's a really good song with a really great meaning. So I hope that you guys will worship with both of those songs and spend this week talking about this story. Look it up in 2 Kings and talk some more about it, and just kind of bring God into your world daily and make sure that you're living the way that He is leading you to live. And know that I miss you and I love you all, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye. Mwah.